Very good evening. I hope your preparation is going on in a, high speed manner. We are going to discuss the crisp important point which are very essential for INI-CET kind of exam. Obviously, these are also helpful for the NEET PG, but obviously this is dedicated for INI-CET. So we are going to discuss only those information which you must know, right? Because you know, even after reading physiology multiple times, you forget some of the information. So this session we will try to give you an gist of every important information in a single session. So that is the main purpose of this thing. So first few questions were there from the general physiology, you know. So question was, which of the following is an example of feed forward mechanism? Right. So all of you know that in my classes I told you repeatedly that whenever it is feed forward mechanism, that is an anticipatory mechanism. So here among this option, the temperature regulation will be the answer, because first option, that is the vasoconstriction in response to cooling. Whenever you are doing cooling, there is vasoconstriction. In response to cold, there is vasoconstriction. Which part of the hypothalamus is doing this response? You have to remember that vasoconstriction in response to cooling is a function of the posterior hypothalamus. So this important question has also been asked in another MCQ. So posterior hypothalamus is the answer, that which that center is known as the shivering center, or that is the center which is causing vasoconstriction. Increase in heart rate in response to standing. So whenever there is increase in heart rate even before the start of exercise, could you recall that was on example of feed forward feed forward control system, because that will also have been asked in the INI-CET, that increase in heart rate even before the starting of exercise, that is feed forward. But here increase in heart rate on standing from supine posture. So whenever you change your posture, your heart rate changes. That is a feedback control system, not feed forward. Increase in cardiac output in response to trauma, because of the anemia, in response to anemia. So because of the anemia, there is increase in cardiac output. Again feedback. So only one example here that is given is temperature regulation, that is feed forward. So whenever there is decrease in the temperature of your skin, our core body temperature start rising before the fall of the core body temperature. So even before the fall of the core body temperature, the skin temperature is detected by hypothalamus, and hypothalamus is trying to increase the core body temperature. So that is a feed forward type of control. Now apart from this, you know, 2-3 important information you should remember. That is, one thing is there that is known as the zone of thermal neutrality. This question has not been asked yet, but you have to remember that zone of thermal neutrality means if you remain in a temperature of 25 to 27 degrees centigrade. Suppose in this room temperature is 25 to 27 degrees centigrade. That is known as the zone of thermal neutrality. Why? Because normal body maintains temperature only by physical mechanism, alteration of the cutaneous blood flow. No additional mechanism has to be activated. Means in this room, if the temperature is 25 to 27, so your skin temperature will be also that, and without wasting any of the extra energy, your body temperature will be maintained only by physical mechanism, by vasoconstriction or vasodilation, and only BMR is adequate to maintain the body temperature. Additional mechanism not has to be activated, because you know whenever the temperature is rising to 40 degrees centigrade, that is beyond the zone of thermal neutrality. So what will happen? The heat loss mechanism has to be activated. Whenever body temperature is suppose 10 degrees centigrade, so again the heat conserving mechanism has to be activated. But whenever you are remaining in a temperature of 25 to 27 degrees centigrade, that is known as the zone of thermal neutrality. You have to remember this. Now apart from that, there is a concept of set point. You know, whenever there is fever is happening, so there will be increase in the set point of the hypothalamus, and because of which the body temperature will also rise. So question may be asked that where the set point for thermoregulation is located. So you have to remember posterior hypothalamus, the set point of thermoregulation is located, okay, and the set point is reset in fever. So whenever the fever is happening, the set point will be rise to a high temperature. So concluding this topic, you have to remember that anterior hypothalamus as well as the posterior hypothalamus both are responsible for thermoregulation. Anterior hypothalamus, the preoptic nucleus is most important, the preoptic nucleus, okay, and posterior hypothalamus is responsible for response to cold environment, and anterior hypothalamus is responsible for hot environment response. Means because I told you that whenever you expose to hot environment, there will be vasodilation, okay, and there will be sweating. So all this mechanism are executed by the anterior hypothalamus preoptic nucleus. And posterior hypothalamus, so this contain the set point of the thermoregulation, as well as the posterior hypothalamus is also responsible to response to cold environment, right, vasoconstriction, shivering, all these things. So this is the brief thing that you have to remember, because this topic I have seen for the last couple of years, this topic is coming again and again in your MCQ in different forms. So that's why I thought this may be an additional information in the future MCQ. So please try to remember. Okay. Now the next MCQ here is, in negative feedback gain is infinity. Again a repeat question, but I believe this is one of the important question that you should remember. So gain means correction upon error, we all know. Okay. So this is correction upon error. So you have to think of a system where the error is 0. So whenever the error is 0, then the gain will be the infinity gain. And you have to remember, only one organ is there in our body, which is kidney. When kidney is regulating the blood pressure as well as the blood volume, blood pressure as well as the blood volume, this is a typical example of infinity gain. Okay. Apart from that, if you have to remember, yes, very good, you are giving correct answer. Thermoregulation, what is the gain of thermoregulatory system in our body, and what is the gain of this baroreceptor reflex system in our body? Generally the thermoregulation system has a gain of 33 or 33.5 thermoregulatory system ka gain. Okay. And for baroreceptor system, that is only -2. Okay. So very good you remember. Okay. For baroreceptor this is 2. So this number you may remember, because future question may be asked from here. Okay. So this is the second question. Now coming to the next question. So this question is based on one principle which is known as the volume of distribution principles. So volume of distribution. Okay. So whenever you are injecting sucrose, I believe you remember that the sucrose will be distributed in which kind of fluid? ECF, extracellular fluid. The sucrose will be distributed in extracellular fluid, and this distribution volume, that is the volume of distribution of sucrose, can be calculated from a formula which is known as volume of distribution formula, that is Q minus E upon your C. So this Q is the total amount of substances that is injected. So in this question, this is 100 milligram. E is the excreted amount of substances, that is 5 milligram in this question, and C is the final concentration after mixing in the plasma, that is 0.01. So if you put all of this important thing into this equation, so 100 minus 5 upon 0.01, so obviously this will be 95 upon 0.01, and that is 9500 ml. So that is equal to 9.5 liter is the answer. So this question can be asked in different way also, that when the sucrose is injected, which type of body fluid is measured, and you have to remember couple of substances in this respected. Again, this is a topic which has been asked multiple time in INI-CET in NEET PG type of question. So please try to remember all of these substances, not only single one, all. So total body water can be measured by deuterium oxide or tritium oxide or antipyrine. ECF volume is measured with the help of inulin is the best substances, sucrose, sodium isotope, iodine isotope and mannitol. Same way the plasma can be measured by Evan blue. This has been asked multiple times, and iodine, okay, iodine level albumin, that can also be used. And for RBC volume measurement, chromium iron tagged RBC can be used. And we all know that ICF volume cannot be measured directly, so the total body water minus ECF volume will give you the ICF, and the interstitial fluid means you have to measure the ECF volume minus the plasma volume, ECF volume minus the plasma volume, right? So these are the things that you have to remember at least from this topic. Okay. So I believe I'm not too fast, because these are the repeat question most of the cases, so that's why I'm going a little bit faster. I believe you will be able to. Too good, I'm all good. Okay. So thank you. Now 2 undergraduate students found that Amanita phalloids are death cap mushroom. Okay. So this is a kind of toxin. This phalloid toxin is a kind of toxin. So this is a new question, but this question is given in Genau. Okay, if you look at Genau, so this question has been given. So question is given in a detailed version. The death cap is liver hemorrhage, everything is given. But the question is, if actin is component of the cellular cytoskeleton, we know that. And what is this F actin? F stands for filamentous actin, right? So this is a kind of cytoskeleton protein which is composed of small G actin subunits. So this is known as a globular actin single. Okay, another globular actin, another one. So whenever they polymerizes with one another, this is known a long filament, and that is known as the F actin or filamentous actin. So is defined by functional form of actin. This is wrong. So F stands for filamentous, not functional. refer to the actin subunit. So what is the question? Question is F-actin. So what is the meaning of F-actin? That is the question. So refer to the actin subunit that provide molecular building block of the extended molecule. This is also false because this description is of the G-actin, not of the F-actin. Okay. G-actin means that is a globular actin, and that is the subunit that provide molecular building blocks of the extended filamentous actin. Provide the molecular architecture for cell to cell communication. So cell to cell communication is not done by actin, because you know there are gap junctions, there are desmosomes, there are tight junctions. They are the molecule which helps in cell and cell communication. So this is also not true here. So only one option is correct here, and that is first one, that's provide a structural component to the cell movement. So actin is responsible for the movement of the cell. It's a cellular cytoskeleton. Okay. So if you look at the location of the actin, so in my main class I have discussed that dynamic cytoskeleton is microtubule and microfilament. So this microfilament is basically my actin molecule. Okay. And where they are located, if you look at the cell, so this is the structure of the cell. So this green color structure, look at this is green color, this is also green color. So this green color small fiber, they are the actin fiber, because they are located just beneath the cell membrane, and they are also located within this cilia of the cell. They are responsible for the movement of the cell. So that's why the first option is correct. And I believe you know the intermediate filament, you know the microtubule. Okay. So microtubule has the largest diameter among all of this cytoskeleton, and intermediate filament are the fixed structure. That's why here it is written that this is static one. So static means that is a fixed structure within the cell, and that acts as a cellular marker. Like for example, keratin is the marker of some cells. Okay. Vimentin is the marker of certain cells. So those are the keratin, vimentin, those are the intermediate filament example. Okay. So if I go back to the original question, what is the original question? Original question is talking about some mushroom poison. Okay. What is the name of that poison? Try to remember this extra point. This is phalloidin toxin. So what is the mechanism of this phalloidin toxin? It selectively uptake in the liver cell. That's why in the question it has been described that the liver is damaged, because this toxin which is present in this mushroom, okay, this is present in this mushroom, this is phalloidin toxin. It is selectively uptake by liver cell, and specifically it binds to F-actin, that is filamentous actin, and after binding it stabilizes the actin molecule. So actin molecule is a kind of dynamic cytoskeleton, I just told. So there will be multiple polymerization of the G-actin, because of which F-actin will be formed. Whenever you stabilizes the molecule, there will no further growth, there will not be any further growth of the actin. And if the cell is growing but the filament is not growing, then what will happen? There will be dysregulation inside the cell, and the cell death will happen. That's why this depolymerization and polymerization will be disrupted, and that will disrupt the cellular function, leads to the death of the cell and severe liver damage, particularly cholestasis. Okay. So this important extra information you may remember for your upcoming exam. Okay. So this is all about the question. Next question. So next question is here. Okay. Which of the following type of transport? Very good. Okay, thank you. So which of the following type of transport does not require ATP? So basically they are indirectly asking which of the following are the examples of passive transport. Okay. So paracellular transport, we all know that this is a kind of passive transport. Simple diffusion is also a passive transport, and facilitated diffusion is also a passive transport. These two are the active kind of transport. Active transport means ATP is required. So obvious answer is A, B, C. Now why I have kept this question? Simple question, but sometimes simple question we get confused. Like for example, look at this structure. So this structure I have also shown you in my main classes also. So this is the plasma membrane, and on the plasma membrane this is a channel protein. Okay. So this is a kind of channel protein, and the other three, they are known as the carrier protein. Okay. So all of them are protein, but carrier protein means they can change their shape, and channel protein means they will be remain only in the open form or in the closed form. Okay. Now any molecule, if it is going through and through the plasma membrane without the help of any protein molecule, that is known as the simple diffusion. Obviously simple diffusion. But even if the molecule is passing through with the help of a channel protein also, that is also simple diffusion. Don't think that that is a facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion require carrier protein, not not the channel protein. So if a molecule is passing through a channel protein also, then that is also a simple diffusion. Getting my point? Okay, because with channel the substance is not going to bind. Okay, by definition the carrier protein means the carrier protein will change its shape after binding with the substances which is going to transport it through the cell membrane, right? For example, suppose if the glucose is going to be transported with the help of the carrier protein, first of all the glucose will bind, then the carrier protein will change its shape, because of which the glucose will be released from the other side of the membrane. Okay, but if the glucose is moving through a channel, okay, then that is a kind of simple diffusion. Okay, but we know that glucose, okay, they can be transported not through the channel, they require the carrier protein. Now whenever a transport is happening with the carrier protein, it may or may not require adenosine triphosphate ATP. So suppose a carrier protein which is taking the help of adenosine triphosphate, so this type of carrier protein will be active carrier protein. But if a carrier protein is not taking the help of adenosine triphosphate, suppose no ATP, but still it is helping in the transport of substances, then this kind of carrier protein is known as the facilitated diffusion type of transport. Facilitated diffusion type of transport. So I have discussed in a different way, but this is the concept. So facilitated diffusion means adenosine triphosphate is not required. Okay, molecule will move from the high concentration to the low concentration. Those rules are always there, from high to low. It is going from the high to low concentration, but it is taking the help of a carrier protein. Carrier protein means what? Does it require ATP? No, for facilitated diffusion it does not require ATP. Only the molecule will bind here, then the carrier protein will change its shape, and then the molecule will be released from the other side. And the typical examples of this is all types of glutes that you know, all types of glute. That's why I was talking about the glucose transport. So all types of glutes are the carrier protein mediated facilitated diffusion. But whenever I say that SGLT is a kind of carrier protein which required the help of the adenosine triphosphate, and SGLT required the help of the sodium as well as glucose for the transport of the glucose and sodium on the other side. So this is the carrier protein which is taking help of the adenosine triphosphate, not facilitated diffusion. So what is SGLT? SGLT is a kind of active transport, active transport. So primary active or secondary active? This is secondary active, because all types of symport and antiport, they are secondary active transport. And primary active transport, how to identify them? Whenever the molecule is attached with a word ATPase, sodium ATPase, hydrogen ATPase, hydrogen potassium ATPase, all of them are primary active transport. They will also take the help of the adenosine triphosphate, okay, and they will have the capacity to break down the adenosine triphosphate. That's why they are known as the primary active transport. ATPase, ATP को break करने का power होती है. That's why they are known as the primary active transport. But secondary active transport, they are carrier protein, they also require adenosine triphosphate, but they cannot break down the adenosine triphosphate by themselves. They require the additional help of primary, because primary is the only molecule which will break down the adenosine triphosphate and supply the energy. Okay, so secondary active transport always require the help of the ATPase molecule, because it has to break down the adenosine triphosphate to release energy. Okay, so this is the basic concept that you have to remember about transport. So I believe in this question why the option A, B, C, that is option number A, we have chosen, as you can easily understand, because the sodium potassium ATPase molecule is the primary active transport, and all kind of symport and antiport, they are the secondary active transport. Okay, okay. Now next question. So next question again a memory based question mainly, which insulin independent glucose transporter. So whenever insulin independent glucose transporter is questioned, you know ki your glucose transporter is present in all. Okay, that's what I was thinking, except. Okay, so see, although I had made this question, and this is a previous year question, but whenever I was looking at which of the following independent glucose transporter, and I look at the option brain, oh my god, I was surprised. Brain is also independent, RBC is also independent, okay, pancreas is also independent. So I thought, what is the problem with this question? Then I look at the except. So in your exam also this kind of scenario can happen. So please read the full question. Okay, without reading the full question, don't jump on the answer. At least last line तो सबसे पहले अच्छे से पढ़ना होगा. Okay, so that you remember. So we all know that in case of pancreas also, the GLUT which is present, that is GLUT2. Okay, so pancreas GLUT2 means that is independent, brain also independent, RBC also independent. Only glucose dependent insulin dependent glucose transporter is GLUT4, which is present in the adipose tissue, muscles. Those are the things. Okay, so I have put on list of the whole GLUT and SGLT. I believe we have seen this in my RR session also, main classes also. So at least try to remember. So this is GLUT1 RBC में होता है, GLUT2 pancreatic beta cell में होता है, GLUT3 neuronal membrane में होता है, insulin responsive GLUT, this is the GLUT4. Most of the important question has been asked from here, and the GLUT5 fructose transporter and sperm में होती है. This is one important thing that you have to remember. Now whenever you are looking at the GLUT on neuronal membrane, try to remember that sometimes question can be asked that GLUT which is present in the blood brain barrier, that is which one, could you tell me? And GLUT which is present on the neuron on the brain, and GLUT which is present on the glial cell. This will be taught in multiple classes in biochemistry also, in medicine also. So here is the GLUT1, neuron is GLUT3, very good, and the glial cell is the GLUT5. Okay, so don't forget this. Very good, all of you, very good. So your preparation is going in the right direction. Okay, and that's the basis motto of this class, that to give you a quick revision of the all important thing. Now coming to the nerve muscle physiology. So the first question is a repeat question of INI-CET. So RMP is maintained due to diffusion of large ions and protein. गलत हो गया, because RMP is not because of the diffusion of the large protein. Protein cannot pass through cell to cell. So ये false हो गया हमारा. Okay, so this is बिल्कुल false, because RMP is the diffusion of the potassium mainly, followed by chloride, followed by sodium. But main it is a diffusion of potassium, that is a small molecule. So ये false हो गया. Diffusion potential is measured using Nernst equation. So Nernst equation measure what? Nernst equation is for isoelectric potential or equilibrium potential. What is the isoelectric potential or equilibrium potential? That is a potential generated by the diffusion of ion through the cell membrane. So that is also known as the diffusion potential. So this is true. So now obviously ये answer नहीं है, ये answer नहीं है. So answer is going to be A is true, no, A is false, but R is true. So D is the answer of this question. I believe all of you got it. Okay, okay. So please try to understand few important things, and I believe that I have shown this point in multiple sessions, because these are the information which should be on your fingertips. Resting cell membrane is permeable for few ions. The most permeable ion in resting cell membrane is potassium, followed by chloride, followed by sodium. And RMP in all vertebrate cell is close to the equilibrium potential of potassium, because potassium is the maximum permeable ion in resting condition. So this conclusion is because of this. Okay, second conclusion is because of this. RMP of the neuron is equal to, so here you have to be a little bit careful whenever the question is equal to, you have to look at which tissue they are talking about. So if they are talking about neuron, if they are talking about myocardium, these two tissue have different RMP. So for neuron minus 70 millivolt, for myocardium minus 90 millivolt. And the equilibrium potential of chloride is also minus 70 millivolt, and equilibrium potential of potassium is also minus 90 millivolt. So whenever the question is equal to, and they are asking about equal to neuron, then your answer is chloride, and equal to myocardium, then answer is potassium. Okay, so question will be like this: equal to, okay, RMP of myocardium is equal to equilibrium potential of, so equilibrium potential of chloride is minus 70, equilibrium of potassium is minus 90. You should not forget this. Okay, and RMP is calculated by Goldman-Hodgkin-Kaz flux equation, because RMP is mainly due to which ion? Potassium, but potassium as well as chloride as well as sodium, all three ions contributed for generation of the RMP. So that's why you cannot take help of the Nernst equation, because Nernst equation is calculating the diffusion potential or equilibrium potential of which type of ion? Single type of ion, right? Single type of ion. So whenever multiple ions are passing through the cell membrane, then the diffusion potential is like RMP, and then the Goldman-Hodgkin-Kaz has to be used for calculation of that diffusion potential or RMP. But whenever a single molecule is diffusing through cell membrane or passing through cell membrane, then the potential can be easily calculated by help of Nernst equation. Got it? Okay. So multiple ion diffusing through the cell membrane, Goldman-Hodgkin has to be used for diffusion potential calculation, and that is equal to your RMP. But whenever only single type of ion is passing through, then the best equation is the Nernst equation. Okay, so this information you have to remember. Now, based on the Nernst equation, this question has been formulated. This is not a repeat question, but this kind of question has been repeated multiple times in INI-CET. So, this is an obviously theoretical cell, because if you look at the concentration of this ion, they are not matching with the normal mammalian cell. So, this is a theoretical cell, okay, model cell we say. So, in this model cell or in this theoretical cell, all the ions that has been given here in the multiple of 10s, 14 into 10, 140, 10 into 10, so this is 100, okay, and 11 into 10, so 110. So, if you look at this number, there are multiples of 10s, otherwise this question calculation is not possible, because all of you know that according to the Nernst equation, that the equilibrium potential, that is the EQ, equilibrium potential, is R T Z F. So, this is a whole fraction, is a constant fraction except the Z1, then followed by log. So, here the log is the natural logarithm, okay, log ln, followed by the equation x is the ion. So, outside concentration of the ion upon inside concentration of the ion. This is the formula. Now, we generally do not remember this RT upon Z, because this is a constant. You have to remember that the RT upon Z, this has a value of plus 61. This is not a value of plus 61, but this log natural logarithm, if you convert it into log base 10, then the whole fraction will be plus 61. Okay. So, this fraction has a value plus log natural logarithm to log 10, if you convert, you have to multiply. So, combination of these two things is giving plus 61. So, this information, this number or this formula you should remember. This is the formula. Now, if I look at this, the question is about the chloride across the plasma membrane. So, chloride concentration inside the cell 11, outside the cell 110. Okay. So, I will put into this formula. So, equilibrium potential of chloride is equal to, everybody try to calculate. So, I will write down plus 61, this is a fixed number, upon Z. Z is the valency or the charge of the ion. So, chloride one charge, but what kind of charge, that is negative charge. So, I am putting minus 1. Okay. Then log base 10, concentration of the ion outside. So, what is the concentration outside? 110 and inside 11. So, now I can easily understand that why the model cell concentration has been given multiples of 10. So, this is minus 61 multiplied by log 10 base 10. So, log 10 base 10 means that is equal to 1. So, we all know that this log 10 base 10, this has a value of 1. So, if you multiply minus 61 with 1, so that is whole minus 61 millivolt. So, answer of this question is option number D, right, that is minus 61 millivolt. Always go by the equation in a step by step fashion, so that you should not miss the negative positive, because if I change the concentration of the chloride, that in a model cell chloride concentration here is 110 and here is 11, then in these cases the equilibrium potential of same chloride will be plus 61 millivolt. Okay. So, please remember that, otherwise you may miss the answer. One time happened, this kind of question was given once in INI-CET, I can remember. In there what happened, the potassium concentration was reverse, and students generally know potassium equilibrium potential is how much. Just now we have discussed in the previous MCQ that potassium equilibrium potential minus 90 millivolt. So, they calculated potassium equilibrium potential and they did not notice that in the model cell that was given in the question, the potassium concentration was reversed. Then potassium concentration is high inside the cell, but in that question it was given high outside the cell. So, whenever that will be given, it will be positive rather than negative. So, please go in a step by step fashion, so that you understand the sign will be positive or negative. Okay. So, this formula, it has to be in your mind, this formula. Okay. And remember, out upon in. Okay. And here I have to put what is the valency of the ion and what is the charge of the ion. If it is calcium, then I will put plus 2. Okay. If it is sodium, then I will put plus 1. If it is chloride, then I will put minus 1, like this. Okay. So, this way you can calculate. Okay. Now, the next question, although a new question, but I believe all of you know that this kind of question you have seen in many cases from grand test, from everywhere, okay, INI-CET, NEET PG, सब जगह में action potential का question, image based question is very famous. So what will be the answer of this question? So ये जो diagram है, in this diagram this red color line, this is action potential. If you ask me why sir are you saying this is action potential, because look at, so one part of the curve is above the baseline, so identify the baseline, one part of the curve is above the baseline and one part is going below. So this is the after hyperpolarization. After hyperpolarization means A is the action potential. So A is the action potential curve. Okay, action potential. What is action potential? What is action potential? If I say it is change of membrane potential. Suddenly the membrane potential is shooting out. If I show you this diagram, okay, look at this. This is the action potential. All of you have seen this kind of action potential diagram, okay. So in this action potential, the x-axis, the 0 point, this is basically your RMP point. Suppose this is minus 70 milli. What is that? RMP point, okay. So from this RMP, the membrane voltage is slowly rising and then suddenly the membrane voltage is jumping. So what is the y-axis? Y-axis is membrane voltage, and membrane voltage here is depicted by Vm. That is a membrane potential, membrane voltage. So basically this y-axis is basically your Vm, membrane voltage, okay. And I can see that this membrane voltage is gradually rising, then suddenly jumping, and one part of the membrane voltage is going below the RMP. That is the part which is after hyperpolarization. So in my question, it is absolutely sure that this red color part, this is actually the change of membrane voltage, and this is nothing but my action potential, okay. So whenever I say Vm is the action potential, I mean red color is the action potential or A is the action potential, so obviously answer will be either C or answer will be either D, okay. Then the next thing is that during this action potential, what is the main ion which is responsible for shooting up of the membrane voltage? Sodium ion. We all know that is the entry of sodium, okay. And sodium ion entry, initially when the membrane voltage is rising gradually, that time sodium channel will open few, dhire dhire sodium channel will open. But whenever the membrane voltage is firing from this time rapidly, then sodium channel will rapidly open up, and then sodium channel will close up rapidly, because we know that the sodium channel is a fast kind of channel. So fast sodium channel will go for rapid opening and rapid inactivation. But what about potassium channel? Potassium channel will mainly responsible for this repolarization part. Repolarization is mainly due to potassium channel, and potassium is a kind of slow channel. Because of the slow channel, if you look at the curve of the potassium, initially the potassium channel will open very few, then it will rise, opening of the potassium channel will increase gradually, and then the potassium channel closure will also be gradually. So this is basically the graph of the potassium channel opening profile. Potassium channel opening profile means this is nothing but permeability of the potassium. Sodium channel opening profile means that is the permeability of sodium channel. So that's why if you look at the question, it is said that the membrane permeability is denoted by P. P is the permeability. So if I look at this green color curve here, so this green color curve is rapidly rising followed by rapidly falling to baseline, rapid up, rapid down. So permeability of this ion is rapidly becoming higher and rapidly becoming lower, so indicating that this must be because of some first channel. And what that first channel? That is a sodium channel. So this is sodium permeability. And if I look at the other curve, so this curve is slowly picking up and slowly decreasing to zero value. So this is a slow channel. Slow channel in action potential. What is the channel? Slow channel in action potential is the potassium channel. So this is the potassium curve. So now this is matching with the option number D. So next question. 5 hypothetical nerve axons are shown in the figure below. Axon A and B are myelinated. So whenever I get this thing myelinated, I have to remember it. And remaining 3 are the unmyelinated. But we all know that there will be increase in action potential, conduction velocity will be increased either due to increase in myelination or due to increase in diameter. More the diameter, what will happen? There will be decrease in the exoplasmic resistance. Exoplasmic resistance. Okay, that's why. Okay, and more the myelination, what will happen? There will be increase in transmembrane resistance. Increase in transmembrane resistance, and because of increase in transmembrane resistance, the ion loss will be prevented, and that will leads to increased conduction velocity. Okay, so in these cases, if you look at the diameter, this has the largest diameter. Okay, although the B is myelinated, but E has the largest diameter. So the confusion will arise only between these two. Okay, the diameter is maximum in E. So diameter is also important for increase in conduction velocity, but E is not myelinated, but B is myelinated, but diameter is lesser than E. So between this myelination and between this diameter, which one is more important parameter for increase in conduction velocity? Myelination. Even if the diameter is double than that of the myelinated nerve, suppose this diameter is double than that of the B neuron, then also the conduction velocity will be higher in which nerve fiber? The myelinated nerve fiber. So what is the bottom line? Bottom line is that myelinated nerve fiber will have the highest conduction velocity, although the diameter is little lesser than that of the unmyelinated nerve fiber. So answer of this question is highest conduction velocity, or the first conduction velocity. So this is fiber B, and fiber B is given in option number A. So option A is the answer of this question. Okay, ये A B C D E देके रखा है ना, ऑप्शन में B से शुरू हुई है, so that's why there is a confusion. Okay, so this thing can also happen to you also, so be careful during answering. Okay, okay, chalo. Now next question, it's a repeat question with reference to the electron microscopic image provided. Okay, match the following with their corresponding sarcomere structure. So if I get this sarcomere diagram, first of all I will try to identify which portion is the lightest portion in the sarcomere. So lightest portion which I am getting here is the C. So C will be known as which band? C will be known as the I band. Okay, and then the darkest portion, so from here this is the darkest portion, so that is your B. So B is which band? B is your A band. Okay, B is your A band. Okay, and C is your I band. So C is I band. Okay, and B is A band. Okay, if you match this, so some of the options will be excluded. Then you also try to match. So what will be this D? D, you can see that this is a dark portion at the center of the I band. So what is this? This is basically my Z line or Z disc. So D is Z line or Z disc. So obviously A is matching with H. So what will be the answer? Answer will be option number D. Okay, I believe all of you get it. So D is matching with the number 4. So you have to give a little time to match here and there, and then you have to answer. Now what about this A? A is H band, and H band का बीच में भी एक line होता है. What is the name of that line? That line is known as the M line. Okay, so H band जो होता है, H band का बीच में भी एक dark line होता है. That dark line is known as the M line. Okay, so that is all about the structure of the sarcomere. This question has been repeated, and I believe you all know that. Okay, next question: which of the following statement is true regarding skeletal muscle contraction? So skeletal muscle contraction. So again, this question is a repeat question, I believe. And you have seen this question discussion in multiple session because this is one of my favorite topic for me. So skeletal muscle contraction. आंसर दे रहे हो आप लोग, सब लोग, वेरी गुड. Skeletal muscle contraction is via intracellular calcium, and what is the source of that calcium? Sarcoplasmic reticulum. This is absolutely true. Okay, extracellular calcium is essential for skeletal muscle contraction. This is false. Extracellular calcium is essential for which muscle contraction? Cardiac muscle. Okay, calcium release occur from mitochondria. This is not required for normal skeletal muscle contraction, although mitochondria can store calcium, but that is not required for muscle contraction in skeletal muscle. Voltage gated calcium channel opening is needed. Opening is not needed because you know कि the calcium channel which is present in the T tubule, that is known as the DHPR channel, that mechanically interact with the RYR channel in case of skeletal muscle. So briefly, this has been discussed in multiple times, but quickly I will go through. So in skeletal muscle, this is the T tubule and this is the sarcoplasmic reticulum. All of you know that here there will be RYR channel, RYR type of channel, and on the other side on the T tubule there will be DHPR channel. DHPR channel is also known as the voltage gated calcium channel. In case of skeletal muscle, both of them will interact mechanically with one another. That's why we know that this is known as the electromechanical. Very good. Electromechanical coupling in case of skeletal muscle, and because of the electromechanical coupling, the calcium will be released from sarcoplasmic reticulum, and then that is contraction, that will cause contraction. But in case of cardiac muscle, first of all, you require these two channel. Obviously this two channel is required, that is a DHPR channel, okay, that is a voltage gated calcium channel, as well as the RYR channel, both are required. RYR channel, both are required. But first important thing is that extracellular calcium has to enter in the cytoplasm through the DHPR channel. So the opening of the DHPR channel is required for this cardiac muscle, not for the skeletal muscle. And then after entry of this calcium will stimulate the RYR channel, and the further calcium will be released from sarcoplasmic reticulum. So that's why in case of skeletal muscle we use that there is a electrochemical coupling rather than electromechanical coupling in case of skeletal muscle. Okay. So electrochemical coupling is also known as the calcium induced calcium release. I believe all of you remember that outside calcium is essential and that outside calcium is stimulating inside calcium release. So that's why we have discussed here that all these three statements, they are wrong for the skeletal muscle. Okay. For cardiac muscle, this option B is true and option D is also true, but even the mitochondrial calcium is not required for cardiac muscle contraction also. So C is false in both skeletal and cardiac muscle. Okay. Okay, very good. So this is a repeat question, but believe me, this is the question which has been asked 3-4 times in INI-CET kind of MCQ. Okay. So एक बार दिया था, मल्टीपल ऑप्शन दे दिया था, उसमें से आपको चूज करना होगा व्हिच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग, मल्टीपल ऑप्शन वाज करेक्ट. एक बार दिया था कि ये जो इलेक्ट्रोमैकेनिकल कपलिंग और इलेक्ट्रोकेमिकल कपलिंग, दैट वाज देयर. सो इवन इफ द इलेक्ट्रिकल ऑप्शन इज नॉट गिवन, so you have to remember mechanical coupling in case of skeletal muscle and chemical coupling in case of cardiac muscle. In case of smooth muscle, we say that pharmacomechanical type of coupling. Okay, pharmaco. Okay, because there are some certain drugs which can causes contraction of the smooth muscle without any kind of outside calcium also. Okay, so pharmacomechanical coupling you have to remember about smooth muscle. ठीक है. सो स्मूथ मसल में कैल्शियम कहाँ से आता है? स्मूथ मसल में मेम्ब्रेन में चैनल होता है, वहाँ से आता है. ओके. सार्कोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम डेवलप नहीं होता है, सो इसीलिए कहाँ से आता है? एंडोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम से थोड़ा बहुत कैल्शियम आता है. सो इन केस ऑफ स्मूथ मसल, दिस कैल्शियम इंड्यूस कैल्शियम रिलीज फेनोमेना इज देयर. लाइक द कार्डियक मसल, इन स्मूथ मसल दिस कैल्शियम इंड्यूस कैल्शियम रिलीज फेनोमेना इज देयर. But if you have to remember that which kind of coupling, then you have to remember pharmacomechanical coupling. Pharmaco, what you have to remember about smooth muscle coupling. Okay. Because there are certain drugs, there are certain neurotransmitter which can causes contraction of the smooth muscle without mechanical coupling also. Now going to the next question. So next question is related to the same discussion. Now dense body is not the calcium release channel. In smooth muscle, you know, on the smooth muscle membrane, okay, there will be channel. On the smooth muscle membrane there will be channel. That part where the membrane channel are located, that is known as the caveoli, not the dense body. Dense body in the smooth muscle is the area where actins are attached. Actin myosin के लिए वो dense body होता है. Dense body is like Z line, that you have to remember. Okay, so dense body is like Z line in smooth muscle, not the calcium release channel. Calcium release channel is there in a part of the membrane where the membrane is depressed. That portion is known as the caveoli. Okay. Okay. Now coming to this malignant hyperthermia. So all of us know malignant hyperthermia is the channel RYR type of channel. But what I have given this, why I have given this question in this MCQ session, because I want you to remember that whatever DHPR RYR question that we have discussed in the previous session. So here also we are saying that RYR channel is there. And in case of cardiac muscle, we are also saying RYR channel is there. And in case of skeletal muscle, DHPR is there. In case of cardiac muscle, DHPR is also there. So why they are behaving differently? although same kind of name of the channel ROIR and DHPR, but why they are behaving differently? Because different sub variety of channels are present in cardiac and skeletal muscle. So you have to remember that the ryanodine receptor channel ROIR 1, 2, 3, three sub-variety are there. ROIR 1 is dedicated for skeletal, ROIR 2 for myocardium and brain. So brain को extra याद रखो, and ROIR 3 is present in the smooth muscle. So just now I told you, in smooth muscle calcium induced calcium release phenomena is there. So there the ROIR channel is ROIR type 3. Okay, and this calcium channel, the L type calcium channel, they are basically known as the DHPR channel. So we was talking about the DHPR. So DHPR is a kind of calcium channel, voltage gated calcium channel. Which type? L type. That is a long type calcium channel. Open होगा तो ज़्यादा देर तक open रहेगा. That's why long type. But you all know that PQ type of calcium channel is also there. N type calcium channel, T type calcium channel. All of this kind of channels are there. So if you want to remember, the PQ type of channel is mainly neuronal. N type of channel is also neuronal, and T type of channel is mainly present in the pacemaker tissue and the osteocyte. Okay, so this few information is crucial for INI-CET. That's why you try to remember. Now if I go back to the MCQ, so malignant hyperthermia is a disorder of the skeletal muscle, not the cardiac, not the smooth muscle. So answer is solely ROIR type 1, not the all of the above. Only ROIR type 1 is the answer of this question. ठीक है, so ये जो टेबल पे जो information है इसको याद करो. Okay, try to remember this information. Next, so next question is again INI-CET favorite question, I should say. Okay, because from 2015 onward, if you study the last 10-year question, this question has been asked multiple times. So what is the tetanization of skeletal muscle contraction? You know, so if you give a single stimulus, if you give a single stimulus to a skeletal muscle, then the skeletal muscle will contract and it will relax. This is known as simple muscle twitch. Okay, but if you give multiple stimuli, in very high frequency, then the skeletal muscle will contract and then it will not get time for relax in between. So it will contract and then it will not get time for relax like this. It will continue to contract in a sustained way, okay, until and unless you are stopping the stimulus. This kind of phenomena is known as tetanization of skeletal muscle. So if I have to remember what is tetanization of the skeletal muscle, it is a sustained persistent contraction of the skeletal muscle due to high frequency stimulation. So what is the formula for calculating this tetanizing frequency? The formula is 1 upon contraction period. 1 means 1 second. 1 second is 1000 millisecond upon the duration of the contraction period in millisecond. So this is the formula that you have to remember. Okay. Now the graph that has been given. So this is a graph of the simple muscle twitch. So from the simple muscle twitch, how can we calculate the tetanizing frequency? So in this graph, you have to first of all identify the peak of the contraction. Okay. So from the beginning of the contraction up to the peak of this contraction, this duration is known as the contraction period, and then from the peak of the contraction, the remaining duration is known as the relaxation period of the simple muscle twitch. Okay. Now formula is 1 upon contraction period. So this is almost starting near to 0 but not exactly 0 up to, so this 40. So almost 40 millisecond is the duration of this contraction period. So if I put this 1000 upon 40 millisecond approximately, so it will be 25 Hertz. So that's why answer of this question is 25 Hertz. Got it everybody? So you will get a question where image can be given or without image also can be given. Generally if without image question is given, they will say that in the simple muscle twitch, diagram, in the simple muscle twitch, one skeletal muscle has a contraction period of 40 millisecond, relaxation period has a duration of 50 millisecond, latent period has a duration of 10 millisecond. Don't get confused. You don't require latent period for tetanizing frequency calculation. You don't require relaxation period. You only require contraction period duration. So whatever is the contraction period, just divide 1000 upon contraction period duration and you are going to get the minimum tetanizing frequency for the muscle. Okay, minimum tetanizing frequency. उससे ज़्यादा दोगे तो क्या होगा? Suppose question is like this: if I give a 30 Hz stimulus frequency, what will happen? Tetanization or incomplete tetanus or only simple muscle twitch? Your answer is obviously tetanus, because this is the calculation of what? Getting my point? So maybe you know everything about the tetanizing frequency calculation, but your question is that if I give a frequency of 50 Hz in this muscle, so 50 Hz is beyond 25, more than 25 Hz, what will happen to this simple muscle twitch? It will go for tetanization, it will go for incomplete tetanization, it will go for simple muscle twitch only. Tetanization, because this is the minimum frequency. इससे ज़्यादा frequency दोगे तो better है, okay, but इससे कम frequency दोगे तो complete tetanus नहीं होगा, tetanization नहीं होगा. Getting my point? So that's why the question is asking about the minimum tetanizing frequency. Okay. So why this tetanizing frequency calculation is required? ये जो muscle contraction हमारा body में चलता है ना, how this muscle contraction happen, you know, कि ये जो biceps muscle का मैं contract कर रहा हूँ, multiple muscle but suppose biceps. So ये contraction क्यों हो रहा है? Because someone is stimulating the muscle. Who is stimulating the muscle? Brain. ब्रेन जाके द अल्फा मोटर न्यूरॉन और लोअर मोटर को स्टिमुलेट किया एंड लोअर मोटर इज कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग दिस बाइसेप्स, दैट्स व्हाई इट इज गोइंग फॉर द कॉन्ट्रैक्शन. सो व्हेन द लोअर मोटर इज स्टिमुलेटेड, व्हाट इज द फ्रीक्वेंसी ऑफ स्टिमुलेशन द ब्रेन इज गिविंग? इट इज गिविंग ए टीटेनाइजिंग फ्रीक्वेंसी स्टिमुलेशन टू द लोअर मोटर न्यूरॉन. इसीलिए बुक में लिखा रहता है कि अपर मोटर न्यूरॉन स्टिमुलेट द लोअर मोटर न्यूरॉन विद बॉम्बार्डमेंट ऑफ द स्टिमुलेटर. व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ दैट? मीनिंग इज the frequency of stimulation is so high that the lower motor एकदम झेल जाएगा कि बहुत ज़्यादा frequency आ रहा है. क्यों वो जरूरी है? Because ये जो contraction हमारा हो रहा है biceps का, it's a sustained contraction. In between ऐसे relaxation नहीं हो रहा है, sustained contraction. So what kind of contraction is happening normally in my body when we contract our muscle? Tetanizing frequency type of contraction. Muscle is contracting in a sustained manner. Don't confuse with the pathological tetanus. Pathological tetanus means उसको छोड़ेगा नहीं, stimulation आते ही रहेगा because of the pathology. You know the reason of that. Okay. So उसमें क्या होगा? Okay, sustained contraction होते ही रह जाएगा, छोड़ेगा नहीं. But here this is voluntary contraction, and this contraction is happening in which manner? In a tetanizing manner. Mean this biceps muscle is stimulated by the upper motor neuron in so high frequency that it is going for a sustained contraction for the duration of the stimulus, and that is a kind of tetanizing contraction of the biceps muscle. So question can be given that whenever muscle contract voluntarily in our body, what is the kind of stimulation to the muscle? That is a kind of tetanizing frequency stimulation. Okay, upper motor neuron stimulate the lower motor neuron during voluntary contraction in a tetanizing frequency or more than that, so that the contraction that is going to happen in the muscle is a sustained contraction, no relaxation in between. Everybody got it? Tell me what is the, got this concept or not? Okay, I told you multiple times that don't confuse this tetanus with the pathological tetanus. Pathological tetanus is the same phenomena, but the pathology is there. Tetanus toxin is doing something, that's why the persistent contraction is happening. But physiologically voluntary contraction is also a kind of tetanizing frequency stimulation to the lower motor. ठीक है? Okay. चलो. Next question. So the next question diagram shows the length tension relationship in a single sarcomere. Why is the length tension development maximal between B to C? Okay. So to understand the length tension relationship, you know, you have to first understand the diagram of the sarcomere. So suppose this is the Z line. This is the Z line, and in between Z line the myosin will be there. Myosin had multiple head like this. Okay, myosin had multiple head like this, and on the surface, on the above this myosin head, this actin molecule will be there. So this blue color molecule, suppose these are the actin molecule. Okay, now at the center of this myosin there is an area where no myosin heads are present, and you know, okay, that is the area where no myosin head are present. That is the edge zone. Okay, so this portion has a length of 0.2 micrometer. Okay, now whenever sarcomere is contracted fully like this, suppose sarcomere is contracted so strongly that myosin is touching the Z line, myosin is touching the Z line. Okay, then in this condition, what is the length of the sarcomere? in this condition, if I ask you what is the length of the sarcomere, length of the sarcomere is 1.6 micrometer. Okay, because this myosin also has a length of 1.6 micrometer. So when myosin molecule is touching the Z line, what will be the scenario of the actin? One actin will overlap with another actin like this. Now, whenever actin is overlapping one another, then the myosin head will not be able to bind with the actin properly, because of which contraction which is going to happen in this case, the contraction will have less strength. That means the tension which will be generated here will be lesser. Now, if you look at this graph, what is x-axis of this graph? Length of the sarcomere. And what is y-axis of the graph? The tension in the sarcomere. Now, when the length of the sarcomere is, see, so this is 1 micrometer, this is 2 micrometer. So in between, suppose I am taking this point, okay, I will take pencil. Suppose this in between I am taking this point, suppose this is the length of sarcomere which is 1.6 micrometer. In this condition, if I look at the tension curve, the tension curve is very less here. Because just now I have explained that whenever the length of the sarcomere is 1.6 micrometer, in this condition the tension is very low. Then whenever you increasing the length of the sarcomere more and more, what is going to happen? The tension in the sarcomere is going to rise, because this overlap of the actin will be removed gradually and the tension is going to rise gradually. Then you will reach a point where there is a plateau between B and C. So this plateau, what is there? So if the length of the sarcomere in such a way, suppose this Z line is here, Z line is here, two actin are just touching their tip, two actin are just touching with one another, one actin, another actin, they are just touching with one another. In these cases, the length of the sarcomere is 2 micrometer. Okay, and during this condition, all the heads of the myosin is going to interact with the actin. Okay, that means this is the condition where the tension generation in the sarcomere will be maximum, because all the heads are binding with the actin. Now, if I increase the length of the sarcomere a little means now I have increased the length of the sarcomere in such a way that there is a gap between two actin, but that gap is 0.2 micrometer only. In these cases also, all the myosin head will attach with actin, because I already told that at the middle part of the myosin there is a zone where the no myosin heads are present. So whether you touching the both actin with one another or you are giving a gap of 0.2 micrometer between two actin tip, the tension will remain maximum in these cases also. But here the length of sarcomere is 2.2 micrometer. That's why we say that whenever the length of the sarcomere is going from 2 to 2.2 micrometer, the tension will remain same. In both the cases, the tension will remain maximum, because of which you are finding out that in this curve there is a plateau, there is a flat portion between B and C. This is nothing but the length from 2 to 2.2 micrometer, and this is known as the optimal length of sarcomere. So in case of optimal length of sarcomere, what is happening? There will be optimal overlap between actin and myosin in such a way that there will be maximum number of cross bridge formation. Okay, so maximum number of actin myosin interaction, maximum cross bridge formation, and that's why this is known as the optimal length of sarcomere. Got it? And beyond this length, if you stretch the sarcomere more, the head will be detached gradually from actin. The myosin head will be gradually detached from actin, and that's why the tension will gradually decrease after this point. Okay, so this is the curve. This curve is known as the length tension relationship curve. Okay, everybody? Okay, so answer C, I believe you got the gist that why the answer is C. So now muscle physiology is done. Now the next question that we are going is CNS. So first question is prominent portion. Rather than prominent portion, you should remember that if the graph is given like this, there is a peak portion of the curve. There is a peak portion of the curve. Even if you are not getting the flat portion, but you are getting a top portion of the curve, here is a peak portion of the curve. That is known as the optimal length of the sarcomere. Okay. Sometimes this step-by-step fashion graph may not be given. In the last INI-CET, the graph was given like this, slowly curve like this. But again, there is a top. So in these cases, there will be optimal overlap. There will be optimal overlap, maximum tension. Okay. Acha, that's why prominent. Which band is prominent? Okay, that is M band. Okay, so M band, I told you na, at the center of this myosin, there is a line which is known as the M. Okay, so this M line will be prominent during the contraction. Okay, M line will be prominent. I band will be disappearing. A band jo hota hai, that is a thick band, that is not going to get prominent. It will remain same. But this M line which is present at the center of the sarcomere, there is a little elevated portion which basically forms the M line. If you compress both the sarcomere from both sides, okay, so what will happen, this M band will be prominent. That's why in book you will find out the M line will be prominent during severe contraction of the sarcomere. Otherwise, I band will disappear, A band will remain same, H zone will also disappear. This is the M line that will get more prominent during severe contraction of the muscle. Okay, chalo. Now, the Golgi tendon apparatus convey message to the CNS. This we are not going to discuss much because I believe all of you know the answer. T for tendon, all of you remember, Golgi tendon organ detect the tension in the muscle, and muscle spindle, MS. Okay, muscle spindle basically detect the length of the muscle, increase length, and the velocity change of the muscle. Velocity change of the muscle. Just remember these two important functions. Okay, so the muscle spindle contain a static kind of fiber that detect the length, and it contain a dynamic kind of fiber. The dynamic fiber can also detect the length, but it is mainly for the velocity change detection. Okay, so is your length of the muscle, okay, given a, this is for the muscle spindle, not for the Golgi tendon. Or Golgi tendon detect the tension in the tendon. Now the next question. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज अ न्यू क्वेश्चन. ओके, ये कभी भी INI-CET में आया नहीं है, बट द क्वेश्चन इज देखो, पेन रिसेप्टर और पॉलीमोडल रिसेप्टर. सो दिस कैन बी एन सेपरेट MCQ. पेन रिसेप्टर और पॉलीमोडल. व्हाई? बिकॉज पेन रिसेप्टर कैन बी स्टिमुलेटेड बाय मैकेनिकल स्टिमुलस. Okay, it can be stimulated by thermal stimulus, it can be stimulated by chemical stimuli. That's why this is a kind of polymodal receptor activated by mechanical, thermal, chemical. Various ion channels in the nerve genetic action potential. Okay, so question is very specific. Mechanical pain, particularly pressure from sharp object. Okay, so for mechanical pain detection, thermal pain detection, and chemical pain detection, there are multiple receptors. See, for mechanical pain, the channel is TRPA1 ATP. That's why some of you are saying that TRPA1 is the answer. But any kind of mechanical pain like this is also a mechanical pain, but this is because of activation of TRPA1 receptor. If it is causing a little tissue damage, then ATP can be again a receptor. But the question is very specific. Sharp pain, very sharp. So sharp instrument देके आपने एक pain inject किया. So this is particularly going to stimulate one special dedicated receptor for pain, mechanical pain, that is MRGPCR, mass related G protein coupled receptor subtype D. Mass related G protein coupled receptor subtype D. That is the receptor which will be selectively stimulated by this. So that's why answer of this question is C. Okay. Now you know thermal pain. There are cold receptor, there are warm receptor. This question has not been asked multiple times, but you remember this is important. Moderate pain, sometimes it was moderate cold is detected by, this question was asked, moderate cold was detected by which receptor? TRPM. The temperature range is 8 to 28 degrees centigrade, so that is a moderate pain, it is detected by TRPM. Warm, whenever the temperature is very high, again the TRPV1, TRPV2 receptor is there, but at a normal skin temperature, this TRPV3 and TRPV4, they are active at a normal skin temperature. Our normal skin temperature in around 30 के आसपास रहता है. So TRPV and TRPV3 and V4, they are normally active in normal skin temperature. And these are the chemical which can induce pain. Bradykinin is the most potent among all of them. So that is the important information you should remember. Okay. Chalo. Next question. Physiological mechanism of physiological mechanism of behind. So physiological mechanism behind, okay, transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, to TENS. All of you know that this is the getting of the pain at the spinal cord. Again, this is a repeat question multiple times, okay. So getting of the receptor. So only one thing you have to remember, that if you give high frequency stimulation or low frequency stimulation, so if you are giving this kind of pulse and if you increase in pulse intensity, so see these are the two electrode in TENS, TENS. What is done in case of TENS? There will be two electrical pad which will be placed on the surface of your skin, okay, like this, and then you are giving some current. That current is going to stimulate the surface of the nerve. So if you give low intensity stimulus, low intensity current, then it is going to stimulate the surface of the nerve fiber, and on the surface of the nerve fiber the large diameter A beta fiber is there. So A beta fiber will be activated, and we all know that if you stimulate the A beta fiber, it is going to cause closure of the gate at the level of the spinal cord, closure of the gate at the level of the spinal cord, and that is basically your gate control theory, okay. But if you give high intensity stimulus, then even the A delta fiber can also be activated. Now whenever the A delta fiber is activated, there will be a kind of paresthesia of the skin. So this kind of TENS pad is also available very commonly in Amazon. Also you can get this TENS pad, okay. So if there is a pain in an area, you can put this two pad and you give a little low intensity electrical pulse, that is going to activate the A beta fiber, and we know A beta fiber is going to reduce the pain pathway by inhibiting the gate at the level of spinal cord. That is a normal mechanism, but you must have noted that if you increase the intensity of this electrical pad, then there will be little paresthesia in this area, and that is because of A delta fiber stimulation, okay. Even if you don't remember many things, you just remember that TENS का जो main mechanism, the main mechanism for transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation is a peripheral mechanism, that is a gate control theory mechanism. But if the question is more difficult, they will ask you that what are the additional mechanism that can be done by TENS, transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation. So additionally, whenever the TENS intensity is increased, the A delta fiber will also be activated. That will activate the periaqueductal gray matter and ostoventral medulla, and you know that these two area, they are the pathway, they are the descending pain inhibition pathway. So additionally, this periaqueductal gray matter and this rostroventral medullary area will be activated, and they will also suppress the pain pathway at the level of the spinal cord. So that's why you have to remember that peripheral mechanism is also there for TENS and central mechanism is also there for TENS. I don't know how long it will go. I am trying to do as fast as possible, okay. But you have to remember that TENS effect are mediated many neurochemical. This has been asked once, that TENS can also release some of the endogenous opioid substances in the brain, serotonin, acetylcholine, noradrenaline also. They can also reduce the pain. But the main mechanism of TENS is the gate control theory. Okay, so that's why gating is the main mechanism, but additional mechanism is there. Those are written here. Okay. Next question: which neuron located in which of the following area releases serotonin as their main neurotransmitter? So this is related to the previous question only. Okay, the TENS mechanism related only. So I told you that TENS mechanism, transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, they basically act at the level of the spinal cord. Okay, so at the level of the spinal cord, look at this diagram. A delta and C fiber, they are the pain carrying fiber. They reaches at the level of the spinal cord, and after reaching at the level of the spinal cord, it releases neurotransmitter, and that activates the second order neuron. Now this pain pathway at the level of the spinal cord is influenced by certain neuron from the upper part of the nervous system, and that is known as the descending or supraspinal pain inhibitory pathway. What are the supraspinal pain inhibitory area? The periventricular area and the periaqueductal gray matter area. Please don't forget this. If you stimulate the periaqueductal gray matter area, your pain perception will be reduced, because this periaqueductal gray matter as well as this periventricular area, they basically extend the neuron at the level of the raphe magnus nucleus From the raphe magnus nucleus, the neuron will reach at the level of the spinal cord and it is going to release serotonin. That serotonin is going to stimulate the interneuron, and interneuron is going to inhibit the pain pathway at the level of the presynaptic level as well as at the level of the postsynaptic level. And this is the mechanism of supraspinal pain inhibition. So, this raphe magnus nucleus is the source of serotonin. That is why if you look at the question here, nucleus raphe magnus is the answer. So, periaqueductal gray matter and periventricular area, what is the neurotransmitter from those nucleus? They are the enkephalin is the neurotransmitter. So, that is why it is written here that periaqueductal gray matter and periventricular, they releases enkephalin at the level of raphe nucleus magnus, and then raphe nucleus sends neuron to the spinal cord which releases serotonin. All of them can inhibit the pain pathway at the level of spinal cord. This is known as supraspinal pain inhibition pathway. Okay, brief discussion, but I believe these are the most important information. Now, this question is about mechanoreceptor. Okay, so mechanoreceptor, all of you know, in class I have discussed detail. So, there are certain rapidly adapting mechanoreceptor like Pacinian, Meissner's and hair end organ. If you have not read this, I will tell you that this slide one of the important in CNS. Okay, and there are slide slowly adapting receptor, Merkel's, Ruffini's and free nerve ending. What is the function of all of this receptor? Everything is written. Pacinian corpuscle, this is the most sensitive touch receptor and this is dedicated for vibration. Meissner's for moving touch as well as slow frequency vibration. Hair end organ, it is also moving touch and first touch in the skin. Merkel disc, the best stimulus is for point or corner or edges. Okay, Ruffini's organ, stretch on the skin, and free nerve ending, itching and tickling is the main stimulus for free nerve ending. So, with this concept, if you look at here, Meissner corpuscle skin stretch, this is false because Meissner corpuscle is for slow frequency vibration. Slow vibration as well as we say the texture of the surface. Okay, texture of the surface. Merkel's disc, this is specially dedicated for point, edges, all these things, point, edges of the table or corner of the table. Ruffini's, the best stimulus for the Ruffini's is the stretch on the skin, large objects mediated stretch on the skin. So, Pacinian corpuscle, rapid vibration, this is absolutely true. So, answer of this question is D. Okay.